So Senator, maybe first we can get your comment on your removal from JGL.
Good afternoon or good morning, Tomas, and all the media. Thank you for joining me today. I find it disappointing, given my recent endorsement of Representative Manny Castro to run for the sole Senate seat that's available this November, but it doesn't surprise me, to be honest.
Just to be clear, you're saying because you've endorsed Representative Manny Castro, who's running for the seat that is up, that the Senate President is holding, you believe this is politically motivated?
It certainly speaks to political desperation, I think, but that's not the only reason. There have been other things that have been happening here in the Senate that I chose not to disclose, because it's just petty. These are petty issues that really don't belong in, the public. I'm not trying to incite any animosity towards anybody. So I chose not to discuss petty issues.
And just real quick, I just wanted to address 2 points in the Senate President's memo on May 7th. She says there are 30 Senate bills and 28 House bills pending in the JGL committee. She also makes a point to say that the last committee meeting was held on September 14, 2023. Looking at that statement, it seems like there was no movement since those dates. So did you want to address those specific
I will
assertions?
address that in several fronts. One, I have been trying since last April, and you guys all have the communication at this point in your hands, that prove that I have been trying to engage Tinian senators to be members of the JGL, and they have taken their sweet time to tell me, only to come back and tell me no, they don't want to be a member of JGL. And this happened prior to the resignation or abdication of Senator Dennis Mendiola in July of last year. I started trying to engage with Tinian senators since last April in a meeting I had with Senator Francisco Cruz.
But why not appoint any of them to be part of the committee?
I did. In those 7 memos, you will see that I have appointed Senator Francisco Cruz first, and he took his sweet time. He didn't respond until 2.5 months later when I followed up, and he finally said he was unwilling to be a member of the JGL. I then immediately appointed Senator Carl King Neighbors, who is now the chair of this committee, and it took him another 2 months to tell me no, he doesn't want to be a part of it. And that was only after repeated attempts to engage with them. And then I finally appointed Senator Jude Hofschneider in November of last year. So, I don't know. I won't speculate. I wonder if, this is just their way of frustrating the legislative process. At this point, I'm convinced it is.
And Senator, just my last question. You weren't at the Senate session yesterday. As I know, you were in Japan joining the Guam Visitors Bureau and United Haneda Travel Mission
Yes.
to engage with various leaders in that industry. This was done while you were away.
That is correct.
What is your comment on that? Because you didn't expect this news when you left.
That's correct. I was actually in the air when I was notified that I was removed from the JGL. And that has been a long-standing dysfunctional leadership we've had in the Senate for the last 16 months. We have had no leadership meetings, not a single one. We don't know, we are not privy as to when the next Senate session will be. The Senate President has basically usurped the powers of the floor leader. As for bills sitting in committee, just because it's in committee doesn't mean it's not being worked on. We are diligent in our efforts to solicit comments from potential agencies that may be affected, and that takes time. Sometimes they don't reply, but we really need their input, so we will write again to them saying we really need your comments. Also, because the Senate President has focused powers in her seat, she has the ability to pull out bills from committees. And she has exercised that on many occasions with different committees.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? You said that the Senate President usurped the power from the floor leader?
Yes, so typically a floor leader has its own powers during the session. They control the floor of the chamber. They have the authority to pull out bills. It's all been, written down in the Senate rules, but for this particular Senate, we received edits to the interim rules a day before the inauguration, giving herself that power.
And how is it?
And I can provide those rules to you as well.
How has that really impacted everything that you're doing?
Well, she controls everything now. The floor leader really doesn't have any powers anymore, except to make motions to pass and adopt committees, reports or anything like that.
Okay. Among those bills in the JGL, are there, or if you can name a number, one or two bills in there that you think they have the reason to push for that bill, like you said, very important bill? Is there any?
There's a lot in that committee, and so the Senate president yesterday said, she has all this memo saying, I asked her to do this and do that. I have. Maybe she didn't read the memos. In my communications to the Tinian legislative delegations, appointing each and every one of them. And there are bills, and I've repeatedly told the senators from Tinian, there is critical work to be done in the JGL, and I encourage them to participate, excuse me, and engage in the committee. I have repeatedly told them my committee is open to any member of the Senate.
If there is compelling bill in there, what could that be? Might be the reason that they do this to you, let's say. Is there any bill that you think could be the reason why? A very compelling reason?
I won't speculate.
Any particular bill in there that they've been pushing?
I won't speculate, but there's the JGL handles bills that are involving government operations, one of them which is the AG subpoena bill.
Yeah, follow question. Going back to Thomas' question earlier, when you engage with the three Tinian senators, did they ever mention which committee they really want to rather than the JGL?
So here's the thing, right? In the Senate rules, and let me look up the rule number. In fact, a moment, please. So Section 7A of the Senate rules, appointment of members, it says, members of standing committees shall be appointed by the committee chair, provided that one member appointed shall be at least one minority member in no less than 4 committees. There are 8 committees in the Senate. At the time that we organized in 2023, after our inauguration, minority members were actually in all 8 Senate committees. But Tinian only particularly wants to be in JGL and EAGR, and I think you guys should ask them why. I won't speculate on that.
Oh, they want to be in EAGI rather than J.
I have no
In
idea.
particular, did they mention which committee they want to be rather than JGL?
Particularly the EAGI.
Okay.
Senator Frank Cruz yesterday was rewatching it today, and he was saying, it sounded like he was saying 2 different things. One, that he didn't have the opportunity to get appointed, and the second one was that he didn't want to be appointed, be a part of a committee that didn't want him. Can you speak to that at all? He said he spoke to you about it.
Sure, he did, and it's recorded in the memos. All the dates are there of when I met with these individuals. One word that comes to mind about everything he said about me being unwelcoming is totally dishonest and utterly false. I'll say that right now. The record will speak for itself. That I have met with him. I have written 7 memos. It took me 7 tries to get them to engage, and now they're coming up with these untruths about how I failed to engage them.
Well, the Senate President said as much as well. She said that she mentioned it to you. She spoke to you a couple of times and said that she thought you would act on it, but that you didn't. So it's different than what you're telling us today.
And that is also an untruth. Obviously, the memos will speak for itself, which you all have.
Senator, I know you've said that it's a dysfunctional leadership. Would you go as far to say that it was orchestrated against you by other senators?
I won't speculate. I do know that while we have not had any leadership meetings, the Senate President does meet with the minorities members at their request, and that's typically normal.
To follow up Arnold's question, you and the Senate President are both Democrats, right? And
I think.
yeah, I have been hearing this riff with you and the Senate President since last year, but with this development, it's confirmed. When it started, and how and why it started?
I don't know why or how. I will say, and I will provide you copies of, the first instance and experience I've had was her trying to control who gets to park in my assigned parking stall. And that is so petty, and that's why I don't bring that up.
Parking space?
Yes. We are all assigned a parking space.
Oh, okay.
And if you go out there, you can film it. My parking stall is the far right, which I have never used, because there is a drainage as I exit my car that is dangerous, and I could literally either sprain or break my ankle.
Senator,
So she issued a memo that only Senate members are allowed to park there. I tried to, Senate staffers, other members have asked me if they could park there, and I have no problems with that. I don't care about my parking.
Senator,
Stop.
does it also go back to the race for Senate President? Both of you expressed interest to be Senate President.
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know what has caused, these actions against me.
Where does it
But I
leave?
won't play victim to it, Tomas. I won't let that distract me. Let's just say my record speaks for itself. I have been the only legislator who has volunteered my salary for the last 2 years at least, without taking a tax credit, as some would suggest, and donated it to Cagman High School for the needy children. It has helped them purchase graduation gowns for those who can't afford it. I have brought the Cortec Foundation, extended it to the CNMI, of which a Tinian student last year was able to benefit from that. There are other numerous actions I have taken that helps the community. I've paved a road, I've fixed I didn't personally fix it, but by calling in DPW and CUC, they were able to fix the flooding issue. In Tanapak, I have appropriated $1 million to NMC.
And Senator, where does this leave the public? Because it's a critical time. The economy is tanking, and the Senate can't seem to get along. So, what is your message to the public, and how will we get out of the economic crisis if we can't talk to each other?
I've tried. I've introduced a captive insurance bill, which now is tabled according to yesterday's Senate. They didn't want to act on it, or they didn't act on it. That would create a new industry for the CNY. That's one of the things. It's unfortunate that they have to bring people down in order to raise themselves up. Talk is cheap. Let's do the work, is my message.
Last question. I know I've been covering Senate since 2007, right? There is a tradition that if, for example, this legislature, Senator Saipan becomes president, so the next should be Tingan or Rota or Tingan, right?
Rota.
Now, aside from that, there's also tradition that if, for example, one senator, district senator becomes president, the vice presidency and the floor leadership should be split between the two other senatorial
That is
districts,
correct. That
right?
is correct.
In this case, the vice president is from Rota, the president is from Saipan, so should be the Senate floor leadership should be given to Tingan, right? In this case, it's not. So Saipan has 2 seats in the top. So,
As officers,
so
yes.
did you put the president on notice why not give the Tingan senators the Senate floor leadership rather than another Saipan?
Thank you for bringing that up, Arnold. That's commonly referred to as the gentleman's agreement.
Yes.
And I've noticed and observed that it only really applies to the top 2. So you have to be in leadership to be an officer. That's been the practice. I came in with that practice already set in place, so we had no control over that. If you're in leadership, they ask you what position you want to be in.
Senator, we noticed that we observed that Senator Corina Babauta and the Senate President, they have a good working relationship. And Corina is an independent. So my question is, how is your working relationship with Corina Babauta?
I'm okay. I'm good with Senator Karina. I have no issues with her.
How about Senator Menjola?
Senator Manglona, I can't speculate on his side. I have nothing, bad to say about him. I like to think that I have good working relationships with them. But if they feel different, I can't control that.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if you mentioned about Dennis Menjola. What's the reason why he resigned from your, and what's your...
I have my
You never-
own
you never
opinions,
issue-
but I won't disclose that.
If I remember, wasn't it Senator Mendiola, didn't he resign saying that he was gonna step down because there wasn't anybody from Tinian that was part of the committee?
That's correct.
Right, that was,
Even though I had tried to, prior to his resignation,
and just for a little context or maybe a comparison, you said that there haven't been any leadership meetings here yet, and you said that it was kind of normal, but is that...
at least for this Senate, it's normal because it's what, we came into.
Well, you were just part of the House of Representatives. How often would you say you met with the leadership team?
Quite frequently. Prior to a session, in the House at least, we meet as a leadership. We discuss which bills will go into which committee so that we don't come out there surprised. We know exactly when the next House session would be. We discuss and collaborate with other committees to discuss, and push for certain bills, and we ask them. So I'm very grateful when I was at the House. One of the first things that surprised me was the Speaker, Edmund Villagomez. He came to my office early on in my term, and he said, "Hey, how are you doing? Do you need any help?" So I was very grateful for that extension of his hand and support. But here we don't have that.
How would you describe the Senate leadership now? Because the way I look at it, the only senators that don't have chairmanship are Senator Judith Schneider and Senator Frank Cruz. So traditionally speaking, they're the only ones that should be considered minority members. But the way it's going on right now, it looks like the two minority leaders get along and support the. How would you describe the dynamics of that? It's kind of weird a little bit right now compared to the previous.
Dysfunctional.
Okay.
Dysfunctional.
Would it be safe to say that there just isn't a majority? It sounds like really there is a major split between the independents, the Democrats, and then the GOP, but the GOP are still staying together with the same amount of numbers. So is it almost kind of even all the way across? In fact, it almost seems like there's an advantage for the GOP because they're still there. They haven't.
Time will tell. Time will tell.
Did you want to talk about some of the developments and the reason for your trip to Japan as well? I
Yes,
know
I
that's part of
did.
your release here. So
Yes.
first of all, tell us who paid for the trip and why you went. We know that several other lawmakers did as well from Rhoda and Tinian.
Thank you, Tomas. The whole trip was fully funded by the Guam Visitors Bureau. And the reason why we were able to be sponsored by them, first I want to thank GVB President and CEO, former Governor Carl Gutierrez. He's an amazing man.